Hey, it's Melissa from Kiwi Banana, and today I want to talk to you about Ital food, and that is something that I came across when I was traveling in Jamaica a wee while ago. And so, Ital food is often celebrated by those of the Rastafarian movement. I'm not going to go too much into the religious, spiritual, and political aspects of Rastafarianism and Ital food. I will leave some links in down below so that you can go and check some more of that information out. But I guess some of the misconceptions that people of the West, in regards to people from the United States, the UK, Australia, just some sort of examples, and how I guess there has been some misinformation that is, I guess, broadcast and talked about. And I guess a lot of people will think that there's Rastafarian culture everywhere in Jamaica, and that's not necessarily actually the case. So Rastafarianism came somewhat out of, I guess, some of the texts in the Bible, so it is somewhat, I guess, maybe under the umbrella of Christianity to a certain extent. But the majority of Jamaicans identify with other Christian, I guess, churches, like Anglicanism. I don't even know if that's how you say it. Baptism, Seventh-day Adventists, which we know they are generally pro sort of plant-based and like vegetarian kind of lifestyles, which is cool. But yeah, there's a good percentage of Jamaicans that identify with those kind of major, I'd say major, but Christian churches. And then majority of the Rastafarianism that you would see is like a imitation of Rastafarian actual culture and religion. It's not like a true it's not real Rastafarianism. It's just like an imitation for tourism purposes. People don't realize that if you identified, as a Rasta, or within the Rastafarianism movement prior to people like Bob Marley, you would suffer some pretty dire consequences. Like it was illegal in places like Jamaica to identify with that kind of movement, because it also has a lot of political undertones to it. So you can read more into that, obviously. So yeah, moving on to more the aspects of the Ital food. So yeah, I guess I'll just quickly touch on the spiritual aspects. Like it's more in the sense of it's talking about oneness and connection with yourself and nature and community. There's only probably about there'd be potentially less than 50,000 Jamaicans that live in Jamaica that actually identify as Rastafarian, and to be honest, most of them are men. And that is no surprise to me as to why there's particular aspects within Rastafarianism that I guess some may see as being a little bit unequal in how they treat men and women, but that's not really the point of this video. So, I guess what I love about, Ital food, and Ital food is generally what a lot of Rastafarian people will eat, is that, it's predominantly plant-based, can be easily made vegan, and it's all based around like wholesome, healthy foods that go through very little process, or it's rather organic. It doesn't go through many hands to get to, I guess, the end consumer as such. It's like I said, it's based on whole plant foods. So things like fruits and vegetables and legumes. They don't consume things like salt. They use things like herbs instead. They don't consume oil. They don't consume dairy. They don't consume eggs. They even tend to cook on clay pots, because they don't believe in cooking in metal, and they have certain health worries around cooking things that are made out of particular metals. I guess the one thing that you would have to be careful about, obviously, if you're vegan, is that some Rastafarians and some people that eat Ital food do eat some fish. So, they generally don't eat meat, but some people do eat some fish. And so that's the aspect of, Ital food that you would just have to be aware of. And, obviously if that was on a menu or in a dish, it was going to be in a dish, then you would just double check that and obviously get that taken out of the meal, not be put in the meal to start off with, should I say. And then other than that, it's vegan. It's Ital food is, they say Ital food is vital. So it's yeah, it's, you know, it's obviously, it's based around a lot of things, you know, to do with their spirituality, and you know, eating good food, I guess, can equate to making you a good person, and you know, on and on and on. We go into all sorts of kind of philosophy around that, of course. And they also tend to avoid like alcohol, tobacco, caffeine. They don't tend to eat like much sugar, or if any. But you know that, yeah, I love the Ital food that I ate there. It was a really great alternative to cooking my own food if I wanted something healthy as well. And it generally wasn't very expensive. I would go to a lot of, I guess they call them like little cook shops. Some people might describe them as like little places that you might let your goat live in. But you know, like little cook shops, and they just cook up some really easy, simple food. It was only a couple of dollars, and it wasn't like deep fried, and it wasn't, you know, it wasn't highly processed. You know, and yeah, I would say like Jamaica is a really, generally from what I've seen, and especially if you're in the rural parts of Jamaica, it's actually quite vegan friendly, and a lot of food can be easily made vegan, because if it's made from, you know, from source being like literally they make pretty much most of the dish from, you know, the ingredient as it would have been pulled from the ground, then you know, they can easily just take things out and swap things and put other, you know, more vegetables in, or they call beans peas there, you know, put more peas in, and they're generally really happy to do that. So yeah, I really enjoyed being able to eat in Jamaica. It was definitely one of the top countries I've probably been to for just cheap, easy, healthy vegan food that you can buy out. You know, it's really good, and I highly recommend like looking into like the history of Rastafarianism. And if you know, you want to learn more about Jamaican culture and about Rastafarianism and Ital food, then you know, I'd seriously recommend doing a little bit of research around that. It's really, really interesting, and I quite enjoyed looking it up. So this is the end of this video. If you've had any experiences yourself in Jamaica, maybe you think that there's some things in this video that I should have importantly advised or talked about, then you're more than welcome to leave that in the comment section down below.